Welcome to the day 16 session on Selenium WebDriver training by 5 Elements Learning. Today we are going to talk about what could be the best practices when we are doing automation. We will then have a discussion on resume preparation and interview questions, and we will look at where we can find good reading material about Selenium and other automation concepts. So some of the best practices are we should quickly get over the usage of Selenium IDE, and we should only use it as a tool to help us with automation than a tool to do automation. It might be used for situations where you want to quickly find out whether the Selenium will be supporting your website by doing a very quick POC, or it might be useful in finding out whether um, to identify the locators for some objects which you are not able to. We should always have some modularity integrated at our code. Wherever possible, avoid redundancy at the code level. And the best way to manage object information in Selenium is by creating page object models. So please do that. To locate an element, we basically use and always use the following order. You locate the element by ID, by name. If both are not available, then you resort to locating the element by XPath, CSS, or the document object model approach. Now, we create a common module class or a generic class as you have seen in the framework creation. The module class was application specific where we created business functions for the module. The generic class had functions like for string handling, mathematical functions, datetime functions, file methods, etc. We should avoid static weights where and how possible and always use dynamic weights, and we should have relative locations for files and URLs in the script so that if our automations would have to run on another system, it can be done. Create your own mechanism of handling data, and we should avoid hard coding any data hard coding at the script level. We should try and fetch the data from outside the script. We should know when Selenium is not a right tool for us. So if our tool is non-web, Selenium may not support automation of it. Okay. Or if the tool is created with a lot of third-party controls, then HTML, standard HTML controls, Selenium again will not be a good tool for it. Now let's talk about the kind of interview questions which we can face. So broadly speaking, your questions can come from IDE, Java, WebDriver, frameworks, TestNG, etc. So IDE questions or questions on generic Selenium are asked for like warm up to break the ice kind of a phenomena. So they can ask you question as in what is Selenium? So you should answer completely as in Selenium is an open source tool for automating your web applications. And it is a tool which is supported by multiple programming languages, multiple browsers, and works on multiple operating systems as well. What are the different components of Selenium? You have got IDE, Grid, WebDriver, and RC. What is the generic feature of Selenium? So generic feature are it supports multiple browser, multiple operating system, and supports multiple programming language. What is Selenium used for? It is used for test automation for web applications. Then, what could be the limitations of Selenium IDE? What is the difference between verify and assert? So, limitation of IDE is it cannot work on any browser other than Firefox. Then, what is SIDE? SIDE stands for Selenium IDE only. Then, the questions on Java are mainly available to find out how good you are in programming, whether you have done any programming or not. So the questions are mainly from the object-oriented programming concept, string questions, and they can then ask you question on writing down a program for reversal of a string. Okay, so they want to test the logic as well. And they could ask you what kind of exceptions you have encountered while working in Java. Okay, so you need to tell about some of the exceptions which we have discussed, like array index out of bound, null pointer exception, division by zero, file not found, etc. Then they could ask a question about regular expression, arrays. So you should revise these concepts. Then when we come to WebDriver, locators are important. In here, XPath is a very important locator. You might be asked to create XPath for an object for which ID and name are not available. Then question could be asked about the find elements method, as in find all the links on the web page. How do you handle table object? Then they could ask you how can you run your test on Internet Explorer. Okay. Then the question on parameterization dynamic weight would be asked. You could be asked the question on page object model, on Selenium grid. Then the question can move on to framework creation on TestNG, on the different annotations in TestNG, the purpose of TestNG XML, and they can then ask you a question on the kind of framework you have worked with. So you can say very safely that you have not been a part of framework development, but you were supposed to implement your automation code according to the guidelines framework has laid. Okay. You may ask in the end experience on BDD Cucumber. So we have covered some concepts in here. You can try answering from them or say you have no idea. Now, I'll be sharing some sample resumes with you guys to have a look at how you can display the knowledge which you have. So remember that resume cannot run endlessly. You cannot have a very, very lengthy resume, otherwise the point is lost. You should have a very crisp and a small resume available. So I'll be sharing few resumes with you guys. You can have a look at it and modify your resumes accordingly and send it to me for verification. Now, Selenium Google group is available. So in future, when you want to discuss about Selenium or you're stuck with an error, always try to use these forums or groups. They're very active member set and you will get a reply very quickly. Similarly, there are a lot of good Selenium LinkedIn groups as well as groups on the Facebook which are very active. Now, tutorials and articles on Selenium are available on these websites. Have a look at them, and there are a lot of good articles which are available out there. With that, we have come to end of the session. It was extremely short because we just wanted to tell you about best practices and interview discussion, resume, interview question discussion. So share your resumes and you all be availing that 1 hour which is made available to you, so you can utilize that 1 hour with me to practice your interview anytime from today onwards. Okay, so you can utilize that 1 hour time with me, one to one with me, to practice your interview. Okay, so please utilize that hour. Okay, then thanks a lot everyone for your attendance. I wish you all the best, and I hope that you all had gained something from this course and you have become and feeling comfortable about automation, about Java, about Selenium. Thank you so much for joining the course. All the best for your careers. Bye, everyone.